there, and welcome to our Monday.com finance webinar series for financial services teams. Over the course of the next 3 sessions, we will be exploring how financial service organizations can use Monday.com to improve visibility, streamline client processes, and create more efficient operations across the business. This series has been designed to be highly practical and rooted in real-world financial service scenarios. So rather than focusing solely on platform features, we're going to be demonstrating how those features can be applied to common operational challenges faced by finance teams every day, from managing loan inquiries and client onboarding to tracking compliance and deal pipelines. This session, Monday.com Basics, is designed for those who are relatively new to Monday.com or who need just to build up their kind of basic knowledge of the platform. By the end of this webinar, you should have a solid understanding of the platform's core concepts, navigation, structure, and terminology, giving you the confidence to begin building and managing your own financial service workflows within Monday.com. So to dive straight in, we're going to be starting off with the building blocks of Monday. So these are the different aspects of Monday that are going to be making up the foundation of your workflows. The first building block is a workspace. So a workspace is like a dedicated hub or container that groups together all your boards, dashboards, documents, and folders related to a specific team, department, or business function. A workspace helps by organizing your work and keeping related boards and docs together. So, for example, your loan application pipeline, client records, and compliance processes. It's also a way to control access. So with your dedicated workspaces, you are able to invite specific team members to that workspace and not only invite them, but also tailor their permissions. So what they can see, what they can edit, what they can do. So this ensures that only the right people are seeing the right work, which is critical in a very regulated financial environment. It also helps group multiple boards together. So a single workspace can hold many boards and dashboards, like I mentioned, so it's a nice way to keep all of those boards relating to a specific flow or process in one place. If we go through and just look at the screen over here, a workspace, this is a workspace. So you have your finance. I've got a finance webinar workspace, but you could create a workspace per department, or if you had particularly very large clients, for example, and you wanted to have a workspace per client and they have multiple boards, you could do that. Like I said, departmental as well. So you could have a marketing workspace, you could have an HR workspace, you could have a finance workspace, and in each of those, you would have the boards and reporting and folders relating to those specific departments. In your in your workspace management page, you are able to see the recent boards that have been looked at. You can look at the content of that workspace as well, and here you can control the permissions. So looking at between a workspace owner, member, and non-member, you can then go and tailor exactly what you want them to be able to do. So on a board level, we don't want them to be able to create boards or private boards, create board views, for example. So you can see it gets really, really granular into what you can actually control and tick and not tick. So that's a really powerful feature as well. Then moving on to the next building block, which is a board. So a Monday board is where the actual work lives. So if a workspace is the building, the board is the working floor inside it. A board is a smart, interactive surface that your whole team can see and act on in real time. For example, in this context, you might have a board for your new loan inquiries, a separate board for active applications, and another one for KYC vetting. So if you look at my screen here, we've got new inquiries, and I will be going through these boards in detail through the course of the training, but our boards we've got here are new inquiry, we've got application, and then we've got the customer vetting. We've also got contacts and accounts. So the board is a really nice way to hold a certain or specific type of workflow or information. It doesn't necessarily have to be a flow. It can just be an information repository. So in the case of a contacts board, this is just a way to keep track of all the contacts that you have in your book and track details against those. Now, the next item or next building block is an item. So an item is a single row on a board, and it can represent one unit of work, one record, or one particular thing that you're tracking. So on the new inquiries board, for example, An item would be tracking the new inquiry that's come through from a form, which we will also be talking about in this session. And by having an item for that inquiry, you can then track it through the process of kind of going through the inquiry. So it's come in as a new inquiry, then it's under review, then it's qualified. And by having that one unit of work, you can also then have multiple different types of details tracked against it, which are tracked via columns, which I will also be going through. But if we go through to our contacts, like I mentioned earlier, this is a record. So it's a record of a contact, or if we go through to accounts, it's a record of a company that you have in your book. Now, the next building block that we're going to be going through is columns. So columns are a way in which you can track crucial information and status and dates against that record of work or item in a workflow. So as you can see here, we've got various different types of columns and information that we're tracking. We have a people column. A people column is a really nice way to assign responsibility and tasks to people who have Monday access. So this is limited to people who have been invited to Monday. They can be members or viewers or admin, but it is limited to Monday.com users. Then we have a status column. I would say status columns are probably one of the most used column types within Monday.com boards. And it's just a really nice way, especially in a workflow, to track that item against the really various different phases that it's in. So where it's sitting in that process. A status can also be used as a categorization. So if there is a specific type of category that this item would fall under, you can also create a status column for that. Then we've got a free text column over here, and this is just provides ability to go and fill in information. So you can have short text and you can also have long text. Then we've got a drop-down column over here for our loan categories. This can have one selection, but you can also create multi-selection. So in this case, it may have been better to set this up as a status because you only want to have one category selected. You have a number column, a phone column, and then again, this is a text column. But this really is just a small set of the columns available. So if you want to have a look at all the rest of the columns that you can add to your board, click on this plus button, go through to more columns, and click on more columns over here. And then you'll be able to see the full kind of set of all the columns available to you. So we've got a lot of AI-powered columns. I'm not going to be touching on that in this session, but in our third session, we're going to be covering that in quite a bit of detail. But you can see there really is a lot of options here in terms of what you are able to add. Perfect. So the next building block that we're going to be touching on is automations. So a Monday automation is a rule that you set once and then the platform can execute for you automatically. So there's no manual follow-ups or changes required once your automations have been set up. And the automations follow a very simple logic. So when something happens, then do something else. So you have a trigger and you have an action. And in this, you can also add multi-actions and you can also add conditions. So I'll go through how you can set up an automation and kind of the automation recipes in a moment. But I think automations are what make Monday kind of really stand out. They can save you so much time completing those sort of manual admin, but very standard processes that you might be doing in your day-to-day. You can just set up an automation to do that, and then it will run in the background. I think automations not only save time, it's also a really nice way to keep people notified and up to date with where the process is at, where the item is at in the process. So you can set up notification automations, you can set up email automations. The possibilities really are endless. So as you can see here, we've got our automations and we've got when this happens, which is a trigger, when an item is created. You can see here that we can add a condition. I'm not going to do that now. We're going to be covering that in our more advanced session. And then we're going to set item status to new inquiry. And we're going to create that automation. So now in the background, every time an item is created, the status is going to be set to new inquiry. Some other automations that we're also going to be setting up in this session is automatically assigning individuals and sending out some notifications, and moving items between different groups. And that takes me to the next aspect that I want to talk about, which is a Monday group. Now, a group is a really nice way to kind of categorize the information further on your board. So you have your inquiries, you have your statuses, and then you can have groups to actually show where those inquiries are sitting within the process. So here we've got new leads. It's very easy if you want to edit a group. So here I want to actually change that to new inquiries. Then we've got under review and we've got qualified. So it's a nice way to show phases of a flow. But again, if we move back to contacts, you can also just have the type of contact that it is. So active contacts or inactive contacts. Here we've just got one group. So you really can use it how you would like. And it's just a nice way to make the information that you're looking at a lot more digestible. So it's really helpful, especially if you have, if you have 100 inquiries on your board. If it was all sitting under one group, I think it would get quite messy and chaotic, and the only way you would be able to see where that was sitting was by a status, which is quite kind of time intensive to go look through and to analyze. Perfect. So those are the building blocks. I think now that you have a good understanding of what makes up kind of the foundation, I'm going to take you through the different boards that I've built. So just a quick kind of demo so you have an understanding of what we're going to be tracking and have a bit of context. So in the example that I'm going to be walking through in the basic training as well as our advanced training and the tips and tricks, we're going to be staying in this workspace and working on these boards and kind of building on them as the training kind of moves ahead. So we've got our new inquiries. The purpose of this new inquiries board is to use a form, which I'll be going through in a moment, using a form either that's been sent to a client or that has been embedded on your website to track any inquiries that are coming through for funding or loans, small to medium-sized business loans. So if we go across to our form here, this can be shared via a link. The client would, or the potential client would fill in the information, submit it, and then it would create an item on the board. But I will go through that in a bit more detail. So once the inquiry comes through, it's going to be looking at new inquiry, if it's being reviewed. Once it's been qualified, then it's going, but the next phase is looking at the applications. So the inquiry has been approved, being qualified, and now you want to actually go through the application process. So we're going to look at how you can track various types of information necessary for an application and track where it's sitting. So if it's being assessed, if it's approved, if it's been paid out, obviously very key phases of that flow. And then we're also going to be looking at a KYC process. So obviously with financial services, it's a highly regulated industry. So the information that you need, the documents that you need from the clients, it's very specific and very standard. So I'm going to be taking you through this KYC board to show you how you can actually track the status of verification, looking at what documents you have, what documents you don't have, where it is sitting in that process, so everyone has oversight into that application, and also standardize it so the documents that are required for every application are set and required in order for that item actually to move on to the next step. Then we've got our contacts and accounts. So this is simple. It's just a way to track any companies and any individuals that have sent through inquiries. You have that database. This is nice, obviously, so you have the information if you need to reach out to them. But it's also nice if you want to run certain campaigns. So you have that repository of information to reach out to if you would like, which I will be going through as well. Okay, perfect. So then now that you've got a good understanding of the boards, I'm going to move across to views and forms specifically. So actually, if I just go back to the main table. So our main table is where everything is going to sit. We've got all of our columns, we've got all of the items, which is great. But in the case where you have a lot of data that you're working with, or even not, but you do want to perhaps see this information in different ways. You maybe want to filter the information. You want to look at it in a different kind of structure. A Monday view is how you can do that. So a view will sit at the top over here. A form is one of them. And if you want to create a new one, you can click on this plus add plus and then add view. Let's say we want to look at a Kanban. So we'll just go and add the Kanban view. Oh, that's not good. Let's refresh. Okay. Sorry about that. Murphy's Law. Perfect. Okay. So now we've got our Kanban, and as you can see, it's all still showing the same information, but it's just showing it in a bit more of a visual way. So we've got our different cards over here, and this is based off of a status column. But if we want to go and edit that, we can go through to our settings. And as you can see, because we only have one status column, that is all we can choose. If we had another type of status column, maybe category, or a different phase in the process, you could choose that, and then these different cards would show that new status. While you're on this Kanban, you can click, it's kind of interactive, so you can click on any card and get the overview of that information, which is really nice. You can look at where it's sitting in the process, any emails, activities, and updates that that has as well. Then in terms of filtering or perhaps maybe hiding some information, so you can create a custom view like I went through by clicking on the plus. You can create dashboarding, which we will be going through at a later stage, charts, anything like that. But if you just want to perhaps filter out particular information and you want to have a custom filtered view, then you can go through to your main table, click on this filter, and let's say we want to actually look at a particular loan category, loan size category. So we're going to go through to column and we're going to choose loan category. And we're going to say above 5 million. And we're going to save that as a new view. We're going to rename this. And we're going to say deals above 5 million. You can pin this view if you would like, and then that will always kind of be at the front. So if I now go through back to my applications and back to new inquiries, you can see that the pinned view is just sitting over there. Cool. So yeah, so far, just to recap, we've gone through our building blocks, boards, columns, groupings, and items. We've briefly touched on automations, but I will be going through those in a bit more detail. We've gone through views and we've gone through the custom boards that I've got. So the next piece that I want to go through is communication and collaboration. I think especially when you are working with clients and there's lots of emails back and forth, there's lots of documents that need to be shared, having a trail of the communication that you've had with that client, and for other people also to have visibility of that communication and any updates that might need to be shared, that's something that's really important. So if you click on this update section, and this is a function that is specific to Monday CRM, and I think is one of the reasons it makes it so powerful. You can send emails and receive emails directly through your CRM, and everyone else will be able to have access to view that as well. You can track any activities, so phone calls, meetings, and again, like I said, you can track emails as well. So this does tie into integrations, which I will be touching on. But if you click on new email here, you can send it to what's going to be from the email address that's connected to this account. Input the email address, subject, you can CC and BCC, and then you can write out your email. You can bring through information directly from the board, you can attach, and you can also add in your signature as well here. You can also create templates, which is quite nice. So if you have a standard template that gets sent out to every new inquiry, you can write out that template, come through here, click on use template, and then send that out. So that's the one portion, is you can send directly, so you don't have to be working in two disconnected platforms, going to your Outlook or your Gmail, then coming back to Monday. You can work solely in Monday and it's all linked together. So anything you send out here, if you go to your Outlook sent, it will be there. And anything that comes through, so that is linked to, if I just close this view here, we don't have an email column here, so I'm going to add this in. Should go here. So once you have this email column populated, any email that comes through from that email address into your Outlook or your Gmail will automatically be tracked on this view. So it's not even a case of you having to go and manually add it. Once you have integrated that email, it will just come through as and when the discussions are happening. Again, if you do prefer working directly out of the email platform, that's not a problem. This will still all come through to this kind of overview page, and you'll still be able to see all the communications that have happened. If we go through to our update section, this is a nice place for internal employees to be able to communicate and collaborate. So the overview, you can see activities and emails that are relating to the client specifically. And the updates are where you can ask for updates and send information based on that particular deal. So if there are documents that you require or you aren't sure about where that's sitting in the process or an update is needed, you can come through to this update section and you can say, use Jared as the example. Sorry, let me try that again. Let's provide update and status of trade qualification. I can then post that. Jared will get a notification that he's been mentioned, and then he can come in, reply, post the update, or if there's a documents required, you can also attach files. And what's really nice with that is you can use AI, and like I said, we're going to be touching on AI in the third session. You can then get AI to summarize all the updates and all the communications that have been had on that deal to give you a really nice view of where it's sitting without having to read through all the updates and read through all the everything in the overview section. The next item that we are going to be going through is the automations. So obviously I've briefly introduced automations, but I want to be going through them in a bit more detail here. So as mentioned, automations are a really nice way to automate any flow of work that is manual, that can be, well, that's standardized, but is manual. So when status changes, moving an item to a particular group, or when an item is creating, sending out a notification to a manager or a particular AE. So if we go through to this create section, you can see there are actually a number of pre-built automation recipes. So you can create one from scratch, which does obviously provide a bit more flexibility because you can pick and choose exactly what the trigger is and what you want it to do and if there's any conditions. But what you can do here is you can have a look to see if one of these recipes actually does the automation that you're looking to do. So I'm going to use, we're going to actually go back and add a date column to this so we know when the inquiries came in. I'm going to call this date created. And then automation recipe that I'm going to look for, we go back through to create. I'm going to search the word date. And we're going to see if there are any options for setting a date. So it doesn't look like it, which is fine. But we can then go to manage, create automation. And we're going to say when item is created, then set date to today. And then once we click on create automation, it's as simple as that. Now, every time an item is created, that date is just going to update. If we wanted to add an additional action, say we want to send out a notification to perhaps the manager who now needs to come in and go and assign that inquiry to the relevant rep, we can then go add an additional item. You can notify in Teams, in Slack, or you could potentially also send out an email if you wanted to. But I'm just going to notify in Monday, and I'm going to say, Jared. And now we're going to create. Oh, notify here. Apologies. We're going to say new inquiry submitted. And then you can just write out the body that you want. I'm going to keep it super simple. Perfect. And we're going to create that automation. So really quick, really simple, but now it's taken a task that would have been manual. And it's also now sent out a notification to avoid any slips, any delays, any delays essentially. Now, the next automation, we're going to actually create a few of these, are status changes. So I would say these make up a lot of automation that the people use, and it's just making that status change line up to the groups. So when a status changes to something, move an item to the next phase. So in this case, when a status changes to under review, we are going to move that item to under review, and we're going to create. Perfect. Then the next automation we're going to create is when status changes to something, qualified. Then we're going to move item to qualified and create. So now we set up 4 automations in a few minutes, and in the long run, that is going to save us so much time. Perfect. So now I think what I want to do is I'm going to take you through the leads, or the lead form, sorry, or the inquiry form, and we're actually going to go and run an example to show you how the flow works in real time and how those automations that we've just created look on our board. So if we go through to the form, like I mentioned earlier, form is a really nice way to get information to your board, but it can be done externally. So you can create an item by just clicking on the section, adding it, and filling in the relevant information. But obviously that is limited to people who have access to Monday. But another way that you can use it is embedding or sending a link for this form to your clients. The embed function is really awesome because you can embed it on a contact us page or an inquire now page, for example, on your website. A client can come in, they fill out the form, and it will create an item automatically on your board. So instead of an email being sent through and then someone having to pick up that email and then fill in the information, you can have it come straight through to Monday really efficiently just by that form. So if we just go into edit form, this is what it looks like when you're editing it. We have just some very simple information here, but you can obviously customize this. So any information that's on your board, you can bring that through as a question so that information gets captured. You can also make information required. So in the case of a loan application inquiry, it's obviously information you need, and without that information, you're not going to be able to make the decisions on the particular inquiry. So you can go through to that question setting, go through to required, and so now no one will be able to actually submit that form without having that field filled in. Okay, cool. So I'm going to copy the link here. We're going to paste it into my browser. It looks very simple, white background, black text, but you can customize this as well. So you can add your logo. If you have custom coloring and branding, you can customize this form, which is obviously going to be really important if you are embedding it on your website. So I'm going to fill this out. Company name, loan category. Contact details, and email. Perfect. So I'm now going to go ahead and submit that. We're going to go back to our board, and you can see Kessia Kryn, information has come through here. It's actually come through to the deals above 5 million because it is in that category. But if we go through to our main table, it is also sitting there. It's automatically assigned the date as today's date. And it set the status to new inquiry, which I believe was something that we sent out, we set up at the beginning of the session. So now we've got this in, new inquiry has arrived. A notification also would have been sent out to Jared that a new lead has been created, or sorry, a new inquiry has come through. The one item that I actually also want to set up to show you how easy it is to automate the manual assigning of tasks to people, we're going to set up another automation. And this is actually going to have a condition. So we're going to go through and create automation. And we're going to say when the item is created and only if drop down is above 5 million, then we are going to assign a person. So this is the example I've just used is, let's say there are different reps who deal with different loan categories. If you are capturing that information in the inquiry, you can then automate who it gets assigned to, so they know that it's already come in. They can start working on it immediately instead of waiting for someone to go and actually assign them. So I'm going to assign myself. So in this case, we call it advisor to that item. Perfect. And we are going to create. So now I'm going to submit the form one more time. Just going to copy the link again. Wait to load. Perfect. So I'm going to fill it out again quickly. Just use the same information, but I'm going to say above 5 mil. Monthly turnover. Contact details. Perfect. So obviously we've got a duplicate now, but you can see since we've created that new automation, it's set the date, set it to new inquiry, and it has assigned me. So I will get a notification that I've been assigned something. Jared will get a notification that the item has been created. And that's just obviously a small example of what you can do from the automations. So now we're going to go through and we are going to change this to under review. So you're going to move that item through to under review. And then we're going to go and again say qualified. And it should then go and move the item to qualified. So very simple examples, but you can see how you can really streamline your flow and make sure things are moving through quickly, things don't get stuck and lost in the mix. All that's needed is statuses are changing, and then everything else is being done for you. Cool. So the next item that I want to discuss is going to be, this is actually the next but final piece that we're going to be discussing in today's session, is looking at some basic dashboarding. So in the advanced session and in tips and tricks, we are going to be going through this in a lot more detail, but I do just want to kind of start showing you what type of reporting is possible. So the reporting that we're going to create is going to be on a board level. So there are two different types of dashboards that you can use. One is on a board level, and that is specifically linked to your board's data and information, and you can only pull information from that board. But you can also create a workspace-wide dashboard. And with the workspace-wide dashboard, you can then connect multiple boards that are within that workspace and pull information from all of them. So to create a board level dashboard, we're going to click on this plus sign. We are going to go to dashboard. And then it's going to create this for us. You can use AI. So I'll do that just to show you something cool and how you can save a bit of time, but then I'll also show you how you can add and edit manually as well. So I'm going to say, please, can you create a simple dashboard? Me giving me an overview of my inquiries, category breakdown, statuses, etc. Let me just fix my spelling. And then generate. So this will take a few minutes. A nice way just to show you one of the places where AI can help and save some time. This is just the tip of the iceberg, really. So I'm really excited to show you a few more things later on in the sessions. But yeah, in the matter, I think that was less than a minute. It was definitely less than a minute. We've got this one's loading. So this is going to be total inquiries. This will just be the total number of items on your board. We've got inquiries by loan category. We've got inquiries by status and then workload as well. So this is a graph showing how many inquiries have been assigned to who. So you can see where all of that is sitting. It's also created a filter for us. So if I go here and I click on this drop down, sorry, there you go. It's actually created a filter for loan category is above 5 million. But I'm going to go and clear that. I'm going to save. So then you get an idea of what everything looks like from across the board. So we've got total inquiries by loan category, by status as well. And you can drill down on all of these as well. So if we now want to go and see everything that's on hold, if we can, to see if we can speed up a bit. Okay, so Anita's on hold. We can then go through to the update section. We would see who was the assigned assistant, which is me. So I can then go through to the update section. Say add Kessia. Please advise. Gone and updated that. So right from the dashboard, instead of having to try and figure out, again, this is really relevant, especially in the case of if you have a big volume, we can just quickly highlight what's on hold, reach out to the relevant people and get that deal moving fast because you don't want any bottlenecks, you don't want any delays in that. So this was just a really quick example. If you want to add a new widget, you just click on add widget. The Vibe app is something that we're going to be going through in the third session, but I'm going to go through and add a chart. So this is just a nice way of looking at kind of this information in a different way. If we go through to the 3 dots and then to settings, you can choose your chart type and then you can choose the configuration. So what you want to see on the x-axis, what you want to see on the y-axis. So maybe everyone's monthly turnover instead of count by different sections or different phases rather. Awesome. So I think that concludes our basic training. I hope that you feel a little bit more confident on the basics of Monday and how to start setting up those boards. I think even though this was quite a simple session, the basics are so important, and having a good foundational knowledge of those helps you then kind of scale and start doing the really cool things, which we'll be focusing on in the next session. So just a few things that we will be covering is looking at like some more advanced column types. So connect boards and mirror columns, which allow you to connect multiple boards together, bring through information from each onto another board, and also then trigger automations on those connections. We're going to be looking at multi-board automations. We're going to be looking at workflows, which are more detailed automations again. So a lot of automations, but kind of building on what we've just discussed today, but in a lot more detail and a bit more with a bit more complexity. Cool. So yeah, looking forward to the next session. Thank you so much.